From the earliest traces of human culture, religion has been there, etched into cave walls, whispered through rituals, and carried in the myths that survived millennia. But religion didn't just shape our societies. It helped shape our brains. Early humans gathered around fires, sharing stories of gods, spirits, and the afterlife. These weren't just tales, they were tools. Storytelling activated multiple regions of the brain at once: language centers, memory systems, emotional circuits. The result? A neurological bond between individuals. As belief systems became more complex, so did the mental machinery needed to sustain them. Religion required abstract thought, moral reasoning, and the ability to imagine things never seen, like divine beings or an afterlife. These functions relied heavily on the prefrontal cortex, a region that expanded significantly in Homo sapiens. But the brain didn't just support religion, it adapted to it. Neuroscientific studies show that prayer, meditation, and spiritual reflection activate regions tied to empathy and emotional regulation, such as the anterior cingulate cortex and the default mode network. These aren't random effects. They show that belief systems have co-evolved with the very architecture of the human brain. And then there's the brain's reward system. Acts of faith, moral behavior, even moments of spiritual insight, these can trigger dopamine release. Religion became emotionally gratifying. A feedback loop formed, reinforcing belief through neurochemical rewards. This loop may help explain why religious systems were so resilient over time. Shared religious beliefs weren't just a source of comfort, they were a strategy for survival. In early human tribes, collective rituals created powerful neurological synchrony. When groups chanted, danced, or prayed together, their brainwaves began to align. This phenomenon, known as neural entrainment, fostered unity and trust. It strengthened the tribe, both socially and biologically. Religious ceremonies also increased the release of oxytocin, the so-called bonding hormone. This chemical enhanced group cohesion, loyalty, and cooperation, traits that made communities more resilient in harsh environments. But religion didn't just bind people together. It shaped how they understood the world. The human brain craves meaning. Faced with death, disaster, or disease, early humans looked for purpose in the chaos. Religion provided answers where logic fell short. This act of meaning-making reduced existential anxiety, a known stressor for the brain. Believing in a higher power, in divine justice, or in a cosmic plan gave early societies a framework to endure suffering. That belief calmed the limbic system, reducing fear and uncertainty. Yet the same mechanisms that produced comfort could also create conflict. The amygdala, the brain's threat detector, becomes highly active when we perceive danger, especially when it involves identity or values. When religious identity was threatened, the brain responded with aggression. This neurological vulnerability explains, in part, why religion could both unify and divide. Religion didn't just offer emotional comfort, it trained the brain in unexpected ways. To believe in gods, spirits, or divine plans required the use of theory of mind, the ability to imagine what another being is thinking or feeling, even if that being was invisible. This mental skill, essential for social interaction, was sharpened through religious practice. The more people engaged with belief, the more they exercised areas like the temporoparietal junction, which processes perspective-taking and empathy. Religious stories also acted as powerful cognitive tools. Myths of reward and punishment activated both memory and moral reasoning. Sacred texts demanded attention, discipline, and reflection, stimulating the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex. In this way, religion functioned like a cognitive gym, strengthening neural pathways involved in ethical decision-making and long-term planning. Rituals, too, had measurable neurological effects. Synchronized movement, singing or chanting, increased activity in motor regions and limbic areas, creating emotional highs and feelings of transcendence. These effects weren't imaginary, they were neurochemical. And as societies became more complex, religion became a form of social regulation. Moral codes embedded in religious doctrine served as internalized laws. People didn't just obey out of fear of punishment. They obeyed because the rules were sacred. These internalized beliefs activated inhibitory control systems in the brain, encouraging self-restraint and long-term thinking. But there was a cost. The same brain circuits that enabled ethical behavior could also be hijacked by guilt, shame, and fear of divine retribution. Religion also influenced the way humans processed rewards and consequences. Acts of devotion like helping others, fasting, or making sacrifices often triggered dopamine release in the brain. These internal rewards reinforced moral behavior, not because someone was watching, but because it felt inherently satisfying. Over time, spiritual discipline became neurologically self-sustaining. Some researchers argue that religion functioned as a kind of cognitive technology. It helped compress complex information into symbols, rituals, and narratives. This allowed early humans to store and transmit knowledge across generations without writing. It was memory externalized through myth, morality encoded in parable, social law embedded in sacred verse. In this way, religion enhanced brain functions like long-term planning, impulse control, and emotional resilience. It provided structure in a chaotic world, and that structure was mirrored in the neural architecture it reinforced. But as societies expanded beyond small tribes, religion also served a new function: scaling trust. Shared beliefs allowed strangers to cooperate. When two people believed in the same divine law, they were more likely to trade, to collaborate, or to fight side by side. This trust wasn't just social, it was neurochemical, supported by oxytocin and serotonin systems. Religion, in essence, became a neural shortcut for building large, stable communities, and the brain adapted accordingly. Even in today's secular world, the neurological legacy of religion remains. Practices rooted in spirituality, like mindfulness, gratitude, or reflective silence, continue to show benefits in modern neuroscience. They lower cortisol levels, reduce inflammation, and enhance connectivity in brain regions linked to compassion, focus, and well-being. MRI studies of long-term meditators and devout practitioners reveal measurable changes in brain structure. Areas involved in attention, emotional regulation, and even gray matter density appear more developed. Belief sustained over time leaves a physical imprint on the brain. But perhaps the most enduring impact of religion is its relationship with meaning. The human brain is uniquely driven to ask, why? Why do we suffer? Why do we die? Why are we here? Religion provided answers, not always accurate but deeply resonant. And in doing so, it calmed the storm of uncertainty that consciousness brings. That search for meaning remains embedded in our cognitive framework. It shapes how we interpret events, how we set goals, how we construct identity. Whether through religion, philosophy, or science, the human mind still hungers for coherence. In the end, religion wasn't just a cultural invention. It was a co-evolutionary force, one that didn't simply ride on top of human cognition, but helped sculpt the very organ that made belief possible. Religion shaped the brain, and in doing so, it helped shape what it means to be human.